Most vehicle accidents are actually the result of human error. If an error is made at the wrong moment, an accident or collision will result. A consistent defensive approach to driving is the best way to reduce the likelihood of driver error. The goal of this course is simple: to provide you with the knowledge and safe driving techniques you need to prevent collisions and violations. After successfully completing this presentation, you will be able to list the 5 characteristics of defensive drivers, state the 3 major causes of traffic accidents, describe the actions you can take to remain in control of yourself as you drive, describe what you can do to control your vehicle as you drive, list the 8 most common driving errors and give examples of how to prevent them: speeding, right-of-way violations, turning improperly, driving left of center, passing improperly, following too closely, improper backing, and distracted and drowsy driving. You will also be able to recognize types of driving distractions and how to avoid them, state the collision prevention formula, and describe the action to take in the event of a collision or traffic incident. So let's get started. So let's begin with a very important question. Exactly what is a defensive driver? Defensive drivers have these 5 characteristics: knowledge of laws and safe driving strategies, alertness to focus their attention on driving and the constantly changing conditions, foresight to recognize hazards in advance, judgment to decide the safest action to take, and the skill to carry out that action. The goal of a defensive driver is to use all of these characteristics to avoid and prevent accidents. And why is defensive driving so important? Quite simply because there are so many incidents on the road. In fact, for every 300 near misses, 10 minor incidents occur. And for every 100 minor incidents, 1 major loss occurs. If you consider how many vehicles are on our roads, you can see how quickly that can add up. For example, do you know how many police-reported traffic crashes occur each year on average? Is it A, 3 million, B, 5 million, C, 6 million, or D, 10 million? That's right. Every year, approximately 6 million crashes are reported to police. On average, how many people are killed every year in traffic accidents? A, 36,000, B, 43,000, C, 48,000, or D, 52,000. That's right. Every year, approximately 43,000 people die in traffic accidents. And how many people are injured in motor vehicle accidents every year? A, 1 million, B, 1.3 million, C, 2.5 million, or D, 2.8 million. You're right. An average of 2.8 million people per year are injured in motor vehicle accidents. Statistically, you will be in a collision every 10 years. That's a total of 6 collisions in your lifetime. And what do you think is the most common single cause of motor vehicle accidents? It's improper driving. So you need to be prepared to drive defensively. There are 3 major causes of traffic accidents that make up what is called the accident cause triangle. They are acts of God, unsafe conditions, and unsafe acts. Acts of God are events such as natural disasters. When a tree falls on your vehicle, lightning strikes it, or it is swept away by floodwater, that is an act of God. It's nobody's fault. However, there are some things that can be done to help avoid such acts of God. For example, following weather reports, obeying storm warnings, and canceling trips if bad weather threatens. Unsafe conditions include such things as brake failures, transmission failures, tire blowouts, and other problems with your vehicle. They are more avoidable than acts of God. For example, you can make sure your vehicle is inspected regularly by a qualified mechanic. You can complete pre-trip inspections and more thorough weekly inspections. keep up a maintenance log, chart your mileage, and so on. Examples of unsafe acts include excessive speeding, tailgating, driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol, driving while reading a newspaper or while overly tired, etc. Unsafe acts are very preventable. You can simply follow safe driving guidelines and avoid speeding, tailgating, or driving when impaired. You can also take training to improve your driving, just like you're doing right now. However, what you can't do is prevent the unsafe acts of other drivers on the road. Defensive driving is important because collisions are mostly caused by people. Traditional numbers tell us that at least 85% of traffic collisions are caused by unsafe acts. More modern thinking has that number between 92 and 97%, as most unsafe conditions are caused by the unsafe acts, or for that matter, inaction, of people. If we understand that human error causes most collisions, we can also understand that there is a lot we can do as individuals to prevent collisions. That's because there are two driving conditions we can control: ourselves and our vehicles. Let's look first at how we can control ourselves. We'll start by looking at aggressive driving and road rage. Aggressive driving refers to an angry motorist attempting to intentionally injure or kill another driver because of a traffic dispute. Aggressive drivers react negatively and use their vehicles to retaliate by making sudden, threatening maneuvers. Road rage is commonly defined as a societal condition where motorists lose their temper in reaction to a traffic disturbance. Most aggressive driving behaviors are caused by the driver's own moods and reactions when they get behind the wheel. After they've been cut off, tailgated, or slowed down by a vehicle in front of them, these angry drivers can commit incredible acts of violence, including assault and murder. What are some common irritants that might provoke aggressive driving or road rage? Tailgating to pressure a driver to go faster or get out of the way. Flashing lights in order to signal persons to move to another lane. Obscene gesturing. Changing lanes without signaling. Blasting the horn. Frequently changing lanes by weaving back and forth. Racing to beat a yellow light that's about to turn red. Traveling in the passing or left lane at a slower speed, making it impossible for others to pass. Driving with the high beams on behind another vehicle or toward oncoming traffic. Cutting people off, slowing down after passing someone, and talking on the mobile phone. So how can you protect yourself from becoming the victim of an aggressive driver or road rage? Do not tailgate. Don't switch lanes without signaling. Avoid blocking turn lanes. If you are traveling slowly, pull over and allow traffic to pass. Avoid unnecessary use of high beam headlights. Do not drink or take drugs or medication and drive. Don't drive when you are tired. Do not make obscene gestures when driving. Use your horn sparingly. In parking lots, do not allow your door to hit the car parked next to you. Cut out distractions while you drive. Talking on a phone, putting on makeup, combing your hair, or eating while driving are all serious distractions. In fact, people who talk on wireless phones while driving are 4 times more likely to have an accident than those who don't. So if you really need to make a call or attend to some personal grooming, you should pull off the road in a safe space and park. If you play music or listen to the radio while you drive, keep the volume low, or you might miss hearing a siren or a horn warning you of possible trouble. Passengers in neighboring cars will also thank you. Also, don't stop in the road to talk with a pedestrian or other driver. When driving, assume other drivers' mistakes are not personal. They usually aren't. Be polite and courteous even if the other driver isn't. Make sure your vehicle is comfortable. You are less likely to be irritable yourself if you are comfortable. And avoid all conflict if possible. If another driver challenges you, take a deep breath and just get out of the way. We already said that one way we can control ourselves is to stay sober when we're driving. Did you know that at any time in the U.S. it is estimated that 1 out of 50 drivers are illegally intoxicated? On weekend nights, 1 out of every 10, closer to 1 in 5 between the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., are illegally intoxicated. It is estimated that 2 of every 5 drivers will be involved in an alcohol-related traffic accident at some time in their lives. 2 out of 5 fatal accidents involve drugs and alcohol. On average, 6,000 people are killed annually between the ages of 15 and 20. What can you do about this? Drinking and driving puts you, your passengers, and everyone else on the road at risk. If you drink, don't drive. Use public transportation, take a cab, or designate a driver who will stay sober. And if you have to drive, don't drink. Another factor we can control is our general condition when we drive. Before you get into your car or van, plan ahead. Allow extra time for preparation and to get from point A to point B. You are more likely to experience problems if you are rushing or unsure of where you're going. Stay relaxed. There are many stressors on the road, from other drivers to construction to road or weather conditions. Try not to let them get to you. By allowing extra time, you will be more relaxed when operating your vehicle, which means you'll be much less likely to speed, tailgate, or suffer from road rage. Also, make sure you get enough rest and eat well. Prepare for driving mentally and physically by being rested and eating properly. One of the most common driver conditions affecting the safe operation of a vehicle is fatigue. Fatigue may be caused by lack of sleep, driving too long, or shallow breathing. Being tired dulls your mind and slows your reaction time, so avoid this by getting enough rest and taking regular breaks. Remember, too, that when your body does not receive the proper nutrition, you tend to get tired and low on energy, so eat regular, balanced meals. However, you should avoid eating a heavy meal while on the road because a full stomach promotes drowsiness, and you don't want that to interfere with your number one priority of staying alert and attentive. Another driving factor you can control is your safety. Always wear your seat belt and make sure all passengers buckle up too. Statistics show that wearing your seat belt reduces the chance of injury or death in a collision by 30 to 40%. When seat belts are used properly, they will keep you from being thrown forward or out of your vehicle in the event of an accident. In a high-speed collision or rollover, the seat belt will keep you inside the vehicle, which is the safest place to be. Seat belts also keep you in proper driving position when driving on bumpy or twisting roads. Always wear your seat belt even when traveling short distances or at low speeds. Most collisions occur close to home or work and at speeds less than 40 miles per hour. Now let's look at how we can control our vehicles, beginning with vehicle inspections. Why do we conduct a vehicle inspection? Because it is one of the driving conditions we can control. Keeping our vehicle in good condition and good working order will help us maintain control of the vehicle in adverse driving conditions. You may be required to document your inspection on a pre-trip inspection form. Let's conduct a virtual inspection of a vehicle right now. We'll start with the outside. Click all of the areas you need to inspect. Look at the overall condition. Is there any obvious damage, or do you see any loose parts? Yes, you should check all exterior lights. Good. Check all exterior mirrors. Correct. Inspect the tires for the correct inflation and tread depths. Right. You should check the doors. Good. Inspect the wipers. Next, look under the hood. Right. Check the oil level. Good. Check the windshield washer fluid level. Yes. Check that there is enough radiator coolant. Right. Inspect the hoses for leaks. Good. You should check the belts for wear. That's correct. Check the battery cables. That's right. Make sure the battery terminals are free of corrosion. After you've looked under the hood, it's time to check out the inside of the vehicle. What 3 things do you need to check in the passenger area? Yes, take a look at the floor. Right, check the seats and safety belts. Does the vehicle have fire extinguishers, a first aid kit, reflective tape and safety triangles, a flashlight and a spare tire? Now look at the driver area. What 9 things should you inspect? Right, test the horn. Good, look at the seat. That's right, check under the seat. Yes, take a look on the floor. Right, check out the dashboard. Correct, you should check the steering wheel. Right, check the mirrors. That's correct, look at the gauges. You're right, check the brakes. In addition to inspecting the vehicle before each trip, be sure that the vehicle receives regular, thorough inspections from your fleet manager or a qualified mechanic. Also, be sure to keep up with all required maintenance for the vehicle, including oil changes, tire rotations, brake alignments, etc. Let's think for a minute. What do you think are the most common improper driving behaviors? Click and drag those listed on your screen onto the list in the order of frequency from most frequent to least frequent. That's right. The most common improper driving behavior is speeding. Yes, right-of-way violations are the second most common improper driving behavior. Good. The third most common behavior is turning improperly. That's right. Driving left of center is the fourth most common improper driving behavior. The fifth most frequent improper behavior is passing improperly. Right. Following too closely is the sixth most common improper driving behavior. Which of these driving errors are preventable? A. 1 to 4. B. 2, 4, and 6. C. 5 to 6. Or D. All of them. Right. All of the above driving errors are a result of the drivers making a poor decision, bad choice, or using poor judgment, and are therefore preventable. Now let's look at exactly what you can do to prevent these errors when you drive. The first preventable error we'll examine is speeding. The National Highway System Designation Act of 1995 repealed the maximum speed limit, allowing states to set their own limits for the first time since 1974. Many states quickly moved to raise speed limits on both rural and urban interstates and limited access roads. According to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, in 2013, 35 states had speed limits of 70 miles per hour or higher on some portion of their roadway systems. Higher travel speeds mean more deaths. In states where speed limits were raised to 65 miles per hour, the higher limits caused about 15 to 20% more deaths per year. The U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration estimates that 32% of all fatal crashes involve one or more drivers who were exceeding the posted limit or driving too fast for conditions. They estimate the economic cost to society of speed-related crashes to be more than $40.4 billion each year. Here are some more FHWA statistics to consider. 39% of speeding drivers killed were male and between the ages of 15 to 24. Male drivers involved in fatal crashes were more likely to be speeding than females involved in fatal crashes. Why is speed so significant? Crash forces on impact double with every 10 miles per hour increase in speed above 50 miles per hour. As crash forces increase, so do your chances of being killed or seriously injured in a crash. So what can you do about speeding? The good news is that your speed is something you can control easily. Speed limits vary by state and locale, so you must pay attention to the speed limit where you are and be aware of how fast you are traveling at all times. Also pay attention to traffic around you and down the road ahead of you so that you can react in time when you need to reduce or increase your speed. Now let's look at right-of-way violations. Crashes categorized as running a traffic control, a signal light or a sign, or turning left into oncoming traffic are most likely to occur at intersections. In fact, that's where more than half of all urban crashes occur. So it's important to know the procedures for each intersection you come to, whether it's a traffic light, a stop sign, a yield sign, or a traffic circle. If a traffic light turns yellow as you approach it, slow down and stop. Don't try to make it before it turns red. That's just too risky. Don't run a red light. Never assume you have the right of way, and always use caution. You should be prepared to show other drivers what you are going to do, signaling your intent when necessary. Always slow down as you approach an intersection. Cover your brake as you get close. Come to a complete stop. Only go through the intersection when it is safe, clear, and legal to do so. Never ever attempt to pass at an intersection. It's too dangerous. Railroad crossings should be treated in the same fashion as intersections. Railroad crossings can be deadly. There are nearly 3,000 accidents and nearly 1,000 injuries each year. Never drive around lowered gates. It's illegal and deadly. If you suspect a signal is malfunctioning, call your local law enforcement agency or the railroad, or dial 911. Never race a train to the crossing. Even if you tie, you lose. Do not get trapped on a crossing. Only proceed through a crossing if you are sure you can cross all the track. Get out of your vehicle if it stalls on a crossing and call your local law enforcement agency for assistance. Only attempt to restart if you can post lookouts to warn of approaching trains. Watch out for a second train when crossing multiple tracks. Expect a train on the track at any time. Trains do not follow set schedules. Be aware that trains cannot stop quickly. It can take a mile or more to stop once the emergency brakes are applied. When the engineer can see you, it is already too late to be able to avoid a collision. Do not misjudge the train's speed and distance. A train's large mass makes it impossible to accurately judge its speed and distance. The third driving error that you can avoid is turning. So let's look at the keys to turning now. Always know where you are going. Get into the appropriate turn lane. Use your turn signal. Although laws differ, usually start your signal 100 feet before turning. And turn remembering that before you turn you must yield to oncoming traffic, yield to pedestrians, and turn into the appropriate lane. If you miss a turn, don't go to the next light and make a U-turn. Make a right-hand turn and then turn around in the opposite direction. When making a left turn, turn on your directional signal, obey traffic signals, and keep your wheels and the front end of the car pointed straight. If you get hit from behind with your wheels turned, you will be pushed into oncoming traffic. Yield to oncoming traffic and pedestrians and make the turn only when it is safe and clear to do so. Making a right turn is done much the same way as making a left turn. The only difference is that you turn right. If changing lanes, make your lane switch 100 feet before the intersection. Check your right blind spots for other traffic. Obey traffic signals, yield to pedestrians, and make the turn when it's safe and clear to do so. Be careful not to drift wide into the left lane while making the turn, as you could be sideswiped by traffic in the left lane. Now let's take a look at driving left of center, the cause of head-on collisions. These accidents are the top killer of innocent drivers. Here are some startling facts. 6% of head-on crashes were caused by drivers passing at inopportune times. 20% occurred on curves where drivers were going too fast and veered into traffic. 63% were caused by drivers going straight, being distracted in some way by cell phones, kids, the radio or CD, or falling asleep. More than half occurred in daylight and 80% in dry weather. 4 actions can be taken to help reduce the occurrence or severity of a head-on collision. They are the 4 R's. Read the road ahead. Keep looking ahead for potential hazards. Drive right. Why? Because oncoming cars may move back to their lane. Reduce your speed and ride off the road. If you see a vehicle coming towards you head-on, move off the road to avoid the collision. If you drive too far right and off the road, look for something soft to hit, such as a shrub or bush. If you have a choice between hitting a fixed object or a moving vehicle, hit the fixed object. Now let's consider passing improperly, another common yet preventable driving error. Before passing, always ask yourself if this pass is necessary. Be a defensive driver. If it's not necessary, don't pass. There are 3 steps for safe passing. Maintain a proper following distance. Move left into the passing lane. Always check your blind spots before moving into the left-hand lane and use your turn signal when passing. Complete the pass. Always check your blind spots before moving back into the right-hand lane. How do you know it's safe to move back into the right lane? When you can look into your rear-view mirror and see pavement between the trunk of your car and the car you just passed. Remember to signal again when returning to your original lane. Now let's consider following too closely for a moment. Why do you think some drivers tailgate or follow too closely? A. They think the drivers ahead will get out of the way. B. They think they can stop faster than they actually can. C. They think their response time is good. Or D. They have developed a bad habit of driving that way and don't know. Right. This is one reason why drivers tailgate. In fact, all of these answers are correct. The fact remains that there are no good reasons to tailgate. Just don't do it. Leave distance between your vehicle and the vehicle in front of you. We'll talk about this in more detail later. Now, what can you do if someone else is tailgating you? One option is to try to increase the following distance between your vehicle and the one behind. You can also slow down to facilitate their passing you. And if it's safe to do so, pull over and let them pass. However, do not step on the brake to aggravate them. One way to make sure you don't tailgate is to use the 3-second rule. This is the rule that allows us to measure a safe following distance from the car in front of us. To use the rule, watch the rear of the car in front of you as it passes a fixed object, such as a bridge, street sign, or tree. Count 1001, 1002, 1003. If you pass the fixed object before you're finished counting, you are too close. Important! The 3-second rule is meant to be used in peak performance driving conditions. In adverse driving conditions, use the 3-second plus rule. Add at least 1 additional second for each surrounding hazard. For example, if being tailgated, add 2 seconds for a total of 5 seconds. If driving in fog, add 1 second for a total of 4 seconds. If following a motorcycle, add 1 second for a total of 4 seconds. Or if following a truck in rain, add 1 second for loss of traction and 1 second for poor visibility for a total of 5 seconds. The 3-second rule is never enough for drivers of larger vehicles. They should allow 4 to 6 seconds between their vehicle and the one in front. To make sure you don't follow too closely and you aren't followed too closely, keep a cushion of safety around your vehicle. The cushion of safety is the area around our vehicle that we should try to keep free of other vehicles and pedestrians. 3 areas comprise the cushion of safety. The area from your vehicle to the vehicle ahead, your following distance. The area from your vehicle to the vehicle behind, and the area to either side of your vehicle. The cushion moves with your vehicle. Be sure to increase your cushion of safety in bad weather or if other hazards are present. When creating your cushion of safety, keep these 4 uncontrollable driving conditions in mind. Light. Too much or too little light affects driving. It's important in adverse light conditions to see and be seen, so increase your cushion of safety accordingly. Traffic or surrounding drivers. Traffic conditions vary based on locale. Make sure you adjust your mental frame of mind when driving in various locations and situations. Weather. Be prepared for all adverse weather conditions. Weather conditions rapidly change. Adapt accordingly and be cautious. The best advice for driving under adverse weather conditions is to slow down. Road. Road conditions can also change very quickly. The only difference from the other conditions is that we may not always be aware of the road's changing conditions. Stopping distances are another factor that must be considered when determining your following distances. Think for a minute. What is the typical reaction time from when you see a road occurrence to when you actually touch the brake? A, 1/10 of a second. B, half a second. C, 3/4 of a second. Or D, 1 second. That's right. There is usually an interval of 3/4 of a second between seeing a road occurrence to touching the brake. And that's why understanding how much distance you need to bring your vehicle to a stop is so important. Stopping distance is the distance traveled from the initial perception of a hazard to the time it takes the vehicle to stop. A useful rule of thumb for calculating your stopping distance is your speed multiplied by the first digit of your speed. For example, if you're traveling at a speed 30 miles per hour, multiply that number by its own first digit, 3, for a total of 90. You would need a total of 90 feet to come to a stop. 2 moments comprise total stopping distance. They are 1. Perception and reaction distance. This is the distance your vehicle travels in the time it takes the brain to recognize the hazard and to tell the foot to push the brake pedal. Total perception and reaction time is about 3/4 of a second, 60 feet at 55 miles per hour. 2. Braking distance. This is the distance it takes to stop your vehicle once the brakes are applied. Factors which may affect the braking distance include the size of the vehicle. Larger vehicles need more time to stop, the weather conditions, and the road conditions. Let's see how what we've learned about stopping distance applies on the road. Click on a speed below to see the perception reaction distance and braking distance for a truck traveling at that speed. At 35 miles per hour, this truck needs a total of 105 feet to come to a stop. That's about 1/3 the length of a football field. At 45 miles per hour, the combined perception reaction and braking distances are 180 feet to come to a stop. That's about half the length of a football field. At 55 miles per hour, the total stopping distance for the truck is 275 feet. That's almost the length of a whole football field. At 65 miles per hour, the truck would take at least 390 feet to come to a stop. That's just over the length of a whole football field. At 70 miles per hour, the truck takes longer than the length of an entire football field to come to a stop, over 490 feet. Before we move on, it's important to note that larger vehicles require extra distance to safely stop. Typically, a passenger van would require a 15% greater stopping distance than an average vehicle. A commercial truck would require a 30% greater stopping distance than an average vehicle. Let's continue. Now let's look at the last driver error we exposed, backing procedures. Did you know that improper backing accounts for 40% of organizational driving incidents? How can we eliminate collisions attributed to improper backing procedures? The best way is simple. Don't back up if you don't have to. So let's look at what you can do and not do to prevent a collision when you have to back up. When backing, be 100% sure that no people and/or objects are behind you. Use a spotter if one is available, especially if driving a van or larger vehicle. Check the blind spots and sides of the vehicle. Don't rely solely on your backup alarms or solely on your mirrors. Keep in mind that the situation can change in seconds, so remain vigilant as you back. Turn down your radio so you can hear your surroundings. Roll down the windows for more viewing options and always proceed with caution. For drivers that transport passengers with special needs, consider the following scenario. You have to pick up a passenger at the front door of a house. Should you back into the driveway or pull into the driveway? Remember, if you pull into the driveway, then you will have to back into the street. Hint, which is more likely to change quickly, the driveway or the street? A. Pull in. B. Back in. That's right. It would be better to back into the driveway, so you have a clear view of the street when you pull out. We've looked at common driving errors, but there's one more you need to know about, and it's a big one. It's not paying attention or distracted and drowsy driving. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, in 2010, driver distraction was a contributing factor in 18% of all crashes that resulted in injuries. In 2011, distracted driving caused an estimated 387,000 traffic crashes. In 2010, NHTSA also estimated that falling asleep while driving was responsible for at least 1 in 6 crashes with fatalities. Here are some things you can do to prevent becoming a distracted or drowsy driving statistic. Stay focused on your driving. Don't let cell phones, pagers, or other electronic devices distract you. Practice short, quick glances and avoid prolonged staring. Never read while driving. Avoid eating and drinking while driving. Do not allow passengers, especially children, to divert your concentration. If you must take your eyes off the road momentarily, slow down, increase your space cushion, check mirrors, and identify any hazards around you. Focus on driving and stay alert. Don't be a drowsy driver. We'll start out with an activity to get you thinking about distractions on the road. Take a look at this scene and click on all the potential distractions you see. There are 8 total. Yes, this driver appears to be thinking about an argument with someone. This could cause him to lose his focus on the road. Right, consulting this map could distract the driver from the road. Correct. The car stereo can be distracting. Right. This drink could be a distraction. Correct. If the driver were talking or texting on this cell phone while driving, it could distract him from the road. Yes, these CDs on the floor could be a distraction. Yes, that's right. These children are a potential distraction. You're correct. If the driver tries to see what this police car is doing, he may become distracted. Let's continue. So, how big of a problem is distracted driving? In a recent survey, NHTSA found that about 3.5% of all drivers have been involved in a crash in the past 5 years they attribute to their being distracted. That's somewhere in the region of 6 million to 8.3 million drivers. Recent police report data from the Fatality Analysis Reporting System, FARS, shows that about 5,800 people are killed each year in crashes involving driver distraction. These types of crashes account for more than 15% of all total fatalities. What are the major distractions that caused these crashes? Drivers who were involved in a distraction-related crash attribute their distraction to the following activities. Looking for something outside of the car, such as a building, street sign, etc. Dealing with children or other passengers. Looking for something inside the car. Focusing on another driver. Personal thoughts, or thinking about anything other than driving. Looking at an animal outside of the car. adjusting the radio, and using a cell phone or other mobile device. Let's learn more about the common types of driver distractions. The driver distractions that you found fall into three major categories. External distractions are things outside your vehicle that may cause you to take your eyes off the road ahead of you. Psychomotor distractions are things inside your vehicle that may cause you to take your eyes off the road ahead and your hands off the steering wheel where they belong. And cognitive distractions are things that can take your mind off the task of driving and cause your attention to wander from the road. The first step in avoiding distractions is to realize that any and all distractions have associated risks. The cup of coffee that is just spilled on the floor of your car may be a disaster for you, but the drivers around you will just keep going. You think, I'll just lean down for a second and feel around the floor. I'll just quickly check this map. It will only take a moment to give the baby his pacifier. But the moment you take the risk to look away from the road could be the most critical one in the rest of your life. Maybe you'll pick up the coffee cup without incident. Maybe you'll find the street on the map and nothing bad will happen. Maybe your baby will get the pacifier and stop crying. You won't hit anyone. Nobody will hit you. You win. But in those few seconds it takes to look away, you can also lose. You or your loved ones can be injured or even die. Is it worth the risk to you? Good drivers know how to allot their limited attention to stay on top of any given situation. Let's look at some tips for beating distraction. Avoiding distraction begins with taking good care of yourself. So make sure that you get plenty of rest before you drive. Do not drink or take drugs and drive, as this will impair your judgment and reflexes, not to mention that it's illegal. Always wear your seat belt because it greatly reduces your chances of injury in the event of a collision. Make a conscious effort to let go of stress before you step into your vehicle. Don't drive aggressively, and don't let aggressive drivers get to you either. Make sure to leave a cushion of space between your vehicle and others on the road, and always stay alert for hazards on the road, changing conditions, and other drivers who may not be as attentive as you. Take care of your vehicle, too. Conduct a brief inspection before every trip and make sure that everything is in good working order. Make sure you have enough gas for your trip and that you've remembered to bring everything you need with you. Now that we've covered the basics of avoiding distraction, let's look at the specifics of avoiding external, psychomotor, and cognitive distractions on the road. First up, external distractions. External distractions include construction, pedestrians, billboards, other vehicles, moving and stopped, and police activity. Of course, paying attention to what's outside your vehicle is an important part of driving, but when looking at what's around you stops you from looking at the road ahead, you're officially distracted. So what can you do about external distractions? Consciously remain focused on the road ahead. Be aware that objects and events out there can distract you and resist those distractions. Scan your surroundings for potential hazards without letting them take your attention away from your most important job, driving. When you see an accident in the opposite lane, avoid turning to look. Instead, focus on maintaining your distance from the cars around you whose drivers are very likely rubbernecking themselves. If you have passengers, make them responsible for figuring out what's going on. Slow down and use extra care in work zones. Expect the unexpected. Whenever you become aware of external distractions, reduce your speed and make sure to leave a cushion of space around your vehicle. Pay careful attention to changing traffic patterns and emergency personnel. While all distractions can endanger drivers' safety, texting is especially dangerous because it involves multiple types of distraction, psychomotor and cognitive. Texting requires you to look at your phone, think about what you are typing or reading, and then use your fingers to send and retrieve messages. When texting while driving, drivers tend to shift their focus from the road for long periods of time, steer erratically, possibly hitting other vehicles or roadside objects, and even weave in and out of their driving lane, sometimes more than a foot outside the lane. To help you understand just how dangerous texting while driving can be, consider these statistics. Recent studies by the American Automobile Association showed that when texting, the amount of time that drivers spent with their eyes off the road increases by up to 400%. And the number of incorrect lane changes increases over 135%. Also, the risk of a car accident increases by 50% for people who text while driving. The only safe way to text in a car is when you are stopped, parked, and in a safe location. As a result of this dangerous distraction, many states ban texting or even talking on a cell phone while driving. We've looked at how to control yourself and your vehicle. We've discussed the most common driving errors and how to avoid them. Now let's look at what else you can do to prevent collisions. Ask yourself this question: are you a safe driver? You need to recognize the hazard, understand the defense, and act correctly in time. So let's look at how you can do each of these. Your first step in driving defensively is to recognize the hazards while driving. How can you best do that? You must scan the road ahead, behind, and next to your vehicle for potential dangers. Look ahead 1 to 2 blocks in congested city traffic, about 12 to 15 seconds ahead of you, and look to the next hill or curve in rural traffic, again 12 to 15 seconds ahead of you. Check your rearview mirror every 3 to 5 seconds. And play the what-if game. Ask yourself, what if that driver approaching the stop sign doesn't stop? What if the driver in the oncoming lane swerves into my lane? And so on. Playing the what-if game teaches you to think about potential hazards on the road, which in turn will help you understand what you can do to defend yourself against them. Our next step. To understand the defense, you need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. Watch out for common distractions like those we discussed earlier: changing the radio station, using a mobile phone, shaving, putting on makeup, reaching for something that fell, eating, reading a newspaper or map, etc. Your best defense against each of these distractions is simply to not do them. Remember, you are responsible for your own behavior. Beware, too, of the conditions. You need to understand how to change your driving to deal with ice, snow, sleet, hail, sunshine, and darkness. You also need to know how to allow for appropriate stopping distances in each of these conditions. And you need to be familiar with the handling characteristics of the vehicle you are driving. The environment also requires you to change your defenses. Different times of day, different traffic mixes, and different locations all require different defensive driving strategies. This leads us to the third step in our collision prevention formula. You need to act correctly in time. You must be prepared by knowing the hazards in front of you, knowing what to do to avoid the hazards, and acting quickly to avoid those hazards. Adjust your behavior accordingly before the situation gets out of control. The longer you wait to act in an adverse situation, the more serious the consequences. Act quickly. One skill that allows you to act correctly in time is the ability to read traffic patterns. In other words, being able to spot potential traffic hazards. Examples might be changing traffic signals or parked cars. Some signs that a parked car is about to move include the wheels being turned out, the backup lights on, the turn signal on, a driver behind the wheel, and/or a car door opening. Pedestrians are another potential hazard to watch for. Pay particular attention to jaywalkers, children, and the elderly, all of whom may be especially unpredictable. Learning activity. Hazard recognition. Before we conclude our training, let's see how well you remember and recognize potential hazards on the road. Look at this scene carefully and click on each of the potential hazards you spot. There are 7 total. As you move your mouse over the scene, you can view a close-up below. Right, these pedestrians are a potential hazard. You should slow down when you see pedestrians and be especially careful if there are children among them. Yes, this road construction is a potential hazard. Looking ahead as you drive means you can notice problems like this in time to change lanes safely. Yes, this yellow traffic light means you should slow down and stop. Never try to beat the light. Yes, distractions like cell phones or loud music can make drivers lose their focus on the road, so don't use them yourself and keep your distance from drivers who do. Right, when vehicles tailgate, there's not enough space for them to react to other hazards. Never tailgate, and if someone is tailgating your vehicle, adjust your speed to increase the space around you. Yes, vehicles in your blind spot are accidents waiting to happen. Adjust your speed to keep your blind spots clear. Right, railroad crossings are always potentially hazardous. You must slow down to a speed at which you can easily stop. Even if you follow all of the advice we've shared with you in this presentation, it's still possible that you may be involved in a traffic collision or incident. If that happens, you must follow the correct incident procedures. Complete all forms required by your organization, including a formal accident report form. Assess the safety of the current situation. Provide necessary medical care if needed and you are able to. Cooperate with emergency personnel fully. Provide information on your vehicle and the other vehicles involved. Provide information about or describe the incident. Provide information about the injured parties. Gather names of witnesses and bystanders. And diagram the incident and indicate the area or areas of vehicle damage. And never admit fault or guilt in an incident or collision. If you need a copy of the accident report form, please contact your insurance carrier for assistance. In our training today, we looked at the 5 characteristics of defensive drivers, the 3 causes of traffic accidents, the actions you can take to remain in control of yourself as you drive, what you can do to control your vehicle as you drive, the 8 most common driving errors, speeding, right-of-way violations, turning improperly, driving left of center, passing improperly, following too closely, improper backing, and not paying attention or distracted and drowsy driving. We talked about types of driving distractions and how to avoid them, and how to prevent collisions. We also learned about the collision prevention formula and the action to take in the event of a collision or traffic incident. Used consistently, the information you've learned today can increase your driving enjoyment while decreasing your risk of a collision. Always be a safe driver.